We're on the back of the BCP 45 with Ollie Chickite, who was its last skipper. What are you going to tell us about today, Ollie?
Well, at the present moment, I'm going to talk about this little girl, the boats that this little girl told off. I'd like to give you a little summary of this fishing vessel, whom for 7 years as a cook, then becoming the skipper. These are the vessels I worked for. This one, South Isle, no, Pender Isle, Mel Stoffner. Me and him traveled for years, gillnetting after the reduction herring. This one, Fisher Lathy, Tommy Hunt. He was the lead hand skipper. The Quadrile, Fono, Yugoslavian from Steveston. This vessel went down in the East Coast. The Northview Disaster, Joe Katnich. He was my leader. He looked after me. His boat was very fast. He always made sure I was going to get to a safe place. The last time I ever spoke to Joe, I was 25 minutes ahead of him. I could see his light and the wind was coming. He asked me, he says, BCP 45, are you almost there, Ollie? I said, yes, Joe. He says, tell Tommy Hunt I'll be 25 minutes. No later than 45 minutes I should be having supper with you. 45 minutes went by. Tommy Hunt asked me, he says, what did he say, Ollie? I said, 25 minutes, no later than 45 minutes he should be having supper with us. 45 minutes went by and he says, you go anchor out, Ollie, don't you come out with us. He rolled over, the sea claimed him. He went down in the deepest part of the channel. They searched all that night and could not find him. They found one man in a skiff, tied to a skiff. That was the only sad part of my career, to lose such a wonderful man and all his crew. This other vessel here, the Bessie Mac, I fished it during the raw kelp gill netting. It was a wonderful seaboat. And the other vessel, we always called it Dumb Indian, but Tommy Hunt skippered that for years and years. Tommy Hunt was a very marvelous man, a wonderful fisherman. The other sister ship of this vessel, BCP 43, Dave Carpenter and his brother who ran the Chamas Bay. Dave was the desert herring fox. Oh, he was a marvelous man, good fisherman. So was his brother Dick. Wherever these boats I showed you, we would go and look to see if we could outfox that gang. They would be coming out of these little rat holes with barge loads of herring, then we would have to go somewhere else to try to figure out where we're going to get ours. These are only short memories. The net is hung at its percentage of 30 or 35%. I am going to go down and show you a gill net, how it is hung.
How many types of nets are there, Ollie?
There's the seine net and gill nets, trawl nets, shrimp nets, but I only know about the seine net and gill nets. For I worked with gillnets and seine. I started when I was 14 years old, when I first started learning how to mend the net. And I was 17 when I could make a seine net. And some of the skippers on other boats would say, Ollie, I want you to come and help me work on my net.
So what is the difference between a seine net and a gill net?
A gill net is lighter twine. It's not coarse like this, and there are many, many colors. A gill net could be hung at 240 fathoms on every 100. You'll say 480 fathoms and 200 fathoms.
Is it fair to say that the seine net, though, would encircle the fish and you would then bring them in, where a gill net, the fish would actually get captured in the net?
The gill net would be strung straight out, just straight, or a little hook in it. Not that the seine net is a circle.
So the seine net encircles the fish, whereas the gill net, actually, they get entrapped in the gill net.
That's right. It's only 60 meshes deep. If you get the right color net, you could catch a large number of fish. And if you were fishing in the rivers, in the inlets, they caught such a tremendous amount. There used to be 1,500 gill netters in Rivers Inlet, and they caught quite a tremendous amount of fish in there. They used 23 gauge, 28, 33, whichever a man could afford at that time. Some used the outside net and tried to fish the inside with different colors, but they didn't do very well. You had to have a net that worked in the river, and you had to have a net that worked outside the river.
So we're going to go down now and look at a gill net display that's down there, and you're going to show us everything there is to know about gill nets. Well, here we are down at the gill net display, Ollie. Can you tell us the difference between the gill net and the seine net?
The gill net is 200 fathoms long, 6 feet to a fathom. The web is 4¼ inch mesh. This net is built for Berkeley Sound. In the older times, we never had a weed line. Weed line just came into play. We used to have the net hung like that onto the cork line. The cork line plays a major part in your net. If you only got a 32-foot double ender, this cork line would be fine. If you got a 36-footer heavy, another cork line would be, I think, 5/8. When you pull it on it or pull it on the net in a heavy wind, it could put this out of play, and the net would roll.
So the purpose of the cork line is to support the net while it's in the water?
To keep it afloat, to keep it up. When there is heavy fishing, they would have smaller balloons slapped onto every 20 fathoms. They'll put another little one to keep the net up above if you got 500, 600, 700 fish gilling.
So you have the cork line at the top, then you have the net supported by the cork line, and then at the bottom, to keep the net vertical, there's a what?
The Gillnet lead line. The lead line, there's so many different weights to them. This one is very light because he hasn't got very much wet hung into it.
So the lead line, it just looks like a piece of rope, but actually it's some lead that's encased with...
It's got lead inside it, rolled inside. It's braided over. And it keeps the net down.
Okay.
And this net is hung at 440 fathoms into 200 fathoms of net. It's all in percentages. It is no different than the seine net. The seine net's hung in 4 quarters at 35%.
So the difference between the seine net and the gill net is that the seine net encircles the school of fish, and then they're brought on board the boat, whereas the gill net actually then physically the fish actually physically gets caught in the net itself. Is that correct?
Yes, the seine net is a pursing net. You've got purse line at both ends and you purse it up. This will hang in the water like a curtain hanging on the windowsill, hangs in the water, and it's straight out. And the salmon that are scattered will gill more onto this. If you have large schools of fish, they don't gill. They will lay up against the net. Scattered fish is what the gillneters always hope that they're all scattered, and they will continue to gill all day long. But if they're large schools, you can see a bunch of fish going into your net, you think you're going to get lots of fish, you might not get one. I'll demonstrate on how the hanging.
So Ollie, you're gonna what you call hang the net, which means, as I understand it, that you are going to fasten the lead line to the gill net.
To the whack, yes.
And you're going to use a hanging bench, which looks like a very, very fancy device that somebody obviously has made, very proud of it. And you're going to use this hanging bench in order to support this net to the lead line. Is that correct?
That's right. Just to demonstrate how this bench works, this is set up at 7/1/8 distance to have 440 fathoms of web into 200. I will pick up 4 meshes and you use your own judgment between this distance and this one here, but this must be accurate.
And the reason that has to be accurate is if it's not accurate, then by the time you get to the end of the net, it doesn't arithmetically work out. You end up with either too much lead line or too much net left over. Is that correct?
I don't know if you can see that. See how it's, what the way it is now? All these are open. And if it weren't hung properly, it would be somewhat like this, square. And having these in the proper distance, it's always hanging like a diamond, so that when the fish hit, they're going to gill. But if it's hanging like a square, the fish won't gill. And the cork line is hung in the very same manner. Every gillnet skipper has their own views, their own ideas, what their net should be hung at, the size of their boat, the heaviness, where they fish on tidal currents. They might use a little heavier lead line. And if there's not too much tidal current, they'll use a light lead line. The light lead line, when the fish hit, it's got give in it, so that the lead line lift a little bit, and it won't break these little 23 or 26 pound tests. I'm not a professional net mender, but these are my own personal views. The way I fished it over 18 years gill netting, everything was passed down from one person to the next. We never had a chart. Like this chart will tell me what size mesh, how far this should be measured to have 240 fathoms or 400 fathoms or 600 fathoms of web into 200. It was always passed down from mouth to mouth, moccasin wire. Somebody will say, I only use so much web in my net. Why are you catching more fish than me? Well, this is the way my net was hung. So everybody will copy that guy's net. And modern technology came into play. They started to measure and put it on. So anybody can hang a net as long as they read it properly and do it thoroughly, hanging it. Your net will fish properly. On the end of the gill net, during the day, you would have a buoy to tie on both ends. When you set your net out, you got a buoy here, a buoy there. You run your net, you're chasing fish into the net. At night, this is what they call night buoy. You put the lantern on, light it, you set your net out just before dusk. People know which end you're sitting on. You have a light on that end. And if you're going to run your net, you put another buoy on. You got two lanterns on each end. And you just sit there and drift. And maybe you'll have to run to the other end, pick the other end up and tug it a little bit, put the end back down, you come back and tug on this one. Your net is spread out so that the fish will be continuously gilling. And that's about all I could tell you about this gill net.
Well, what about, I notice it's kind of a green color, Ollie. Are there different types of nets?
Yes, there is different colors of nets.
And why are there different colors? Like
Different colors, different places. A reflection on, if you're in an inlet and you see different types of trees, evergreen trees, you might want to get a color that reflects the sunlight, and the net would almost suit the area that the fish can't see it, other than today there is Alaska twist, which is almost like a monofilament net, when we used to use just nylon.
So are there different thicknesses of thread as well as different colors?
Yes, you can go up to, on a spring net, is a 104 pound test. And a tangle net, you can go up to 26 pound test. Light, thin, like this one. This is 26 pounds. And if your net was a little bigger, you're fishing outside, you might use 33 pound test.
And why would you go to a heavier test? Just because the fish might be bigger?
Bigger, and they hit harder. They hit faster. At night, they seem to just mosey along and they hit the gill. During the day, you would run your net and you spook the salmon and they hit so hard. There was one time, me and my brother fishing the Queen Charlotte Islands. We circle set about maybe 2,000 chums. But when you see the fish spook them, 25 hit the net, left the lead line right up in the air, all the rest is swam out, got away.
So once the net is to the point where you want to bring it into the boat, what do? You go to one end and just start to bring it onto a drum?
Today you're not allowed to fish more than, I don't know, was it half an hour? You have to pick it up. And if you have steelhead or spring salmon, you have to let them go. In the older times, they used to sit for 4 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, not want to pick it up, because if you did pick it up, there are other boats waiting like seagulls to set where you are setting.
So you wouldn't grab one end and form a circle like with a seine. You would just grab one end and then just start to bring it on board a drum?
Yes. It could be weavering all over in the tidal current. So you know you're going to get in the jackpot, you pick it up as fast as you can. And if you see puffweed coming, weed can be like a rope. Keep hitting and it just lifts the cork line up. And that's why they got the weed line today. All the kelp and that will go over it. But you'll only get very little bit of puffweed in it.
So once the net starts to come on the boat, then the fish are not hooked into the net, they just fall onto the deck, or if they are hooked into the net, you just give it a shake and they fall onto the deck and into the hold?
One, there's, you say this is a salmon gill. You try your best to shake it out, or you pull this web over the gill and not break it. But if you break it, you're going to have countless of holes like this. And it's going to take you countless of hours mending it back together. I will mend this one just to show you a prime example.
Do you ever have any problems with seals or anything like that in these nets, damaging them?
Seals, sea lions are the worst culprits. A gillnetter's nightmare. I tried to race the sea lion once. I was out in Egg Island. I had 240 heads come up. I was winding my net as fast as I could drum it in. The sea lion was just picking them off, biting the fish right off, and kept right on till I got to the end. There was no more fish to get. They play havoc on all the gillnetters, the seals, sea lions. They'll rip the net up and there'll be holes like this, big holes.
So then obviously the net needs to be repaired. Now, do some repairs take place on board the boat, or do they all have to be done on land?
No, you pretty much do repair your nets when you get into a harbor or a cannery plant. And your prime duty is to try to catch all the fish you can, no matter how bad your net's ripped up. But if it's ripped up too bad, then you have to go in and change, get another net, and go back out fishing again.
So what is that you've got in your right hand there, Ollie?
This is a needle. with the 26-pound test twine. I'm going to try to close this hole up. And there has to be a start and a finish. If you don't have a start and a finish, you'll never plug this hole up. You go around and around and around and around. It looks easy, but it's not. But it's like a lady crochet. You go from corner to corner to corner.
So you're just sort of making the hole smaller and smaller and smaller as
That's
you go
right.
around until you finally get it completely mended.
Yes. I had a bad experience. I was going out to Chickite with my friend Jimmy Henrik and Don Cox. We're trying to beat the wind off Cape Cook, but the wind came up. And I had a broken down old clunker of a Gillnet, dilapidated. It sprung a bad leak. And I did everything I can to try to save that old girl. I gave up. I laid in my hatch of my vessel. And I still hear Jimmy Henrik and Don Cox telling me, "Don't give up, Ollie, don't give up. You're almost there, you're almost there." So the last bit of strength I had, I went, bailed it out again, bailed it out. I made it into Chickite. Found a place to beach the boat. Jimmy Henrik was already there. He says, "Ollie, I found a place for you to put your boat up on the beach." So I got it up on the beach. I went to sleep. I didn't even know I slept for 2 days. I was so exhausted trying to keep that boat afloat. So there's pearls of the sea that you don't know that it's going to happen.
So you got it up on the beach, and were you able to repair it and
Yes.
refloat it?
Yes, Jimmy Henrik recorked it, and I didn't know he recorked it. I got up. Oh my God, I gotta fix the boat up. He says, "Don't worry." He says, "I already patched it up." I says, "When did you do that?" He said, 2 days ago. I said, "My God, did I sleep that long?" Yes. He said, "You slept for 2 days." And there was another time coming across the Queen Charlotte's. The day was very, very calm, very flat. Something told me, "Go back." I turned around. I was 2.5 hours outside of Jedway. I turned back and I ran up to Reef Island to go the other way. But sometimes the shortest distance is the longest. It's better to go the long way than to try to get across in the shortest distance. It was 116 miles across. That's the shortest distance, because if you went the shortest distance the other way, it's 72 miles. But to go all the way up there and all the way back here, it takes you hours and hours. And my friends, I told them I was going back. "Oh, you're crazy, Ollie, you're crazy. You'll make it." Well, that wind came up so bad. Those 5 boats that were telling me to follow them, they got stuck out there for 6 days, hanging on for dear life. And I came down through Grenville Channel, listening to the Coast Guards trying to find out where they were. They couldn't reach them. It was blowing too hard. The helicopters couldn't fly. The Coast Guard boats couldn't get to them. They hung on to their boats with their net like this tied onto the bow. And they had no more bulwarks. They were all busted up. They made it in. I never saw them again. They quit fishing altogether. And all because the weather looked too flat, too calm. My sixth sense told me, "Don't do it, Ollie. Something's going to happen." And sure enough, it did happen. Calm before the storm. And I always lived by that philosophy. I got away with it once, and I respect the sea.
It looks like you almost got her fixed up there.
Gillnet's never been that easy. There's so many experiences. Many fishermen will tell you that they had many experiences and don't wish to see you get into the same predicament that they've gone through.
So it looks like you're going back now to hanging the gill net to the lead line,
Yeah.
using your hanging bench, and you've put on another 7 inches of cord there. And so you just keep going like that until you reach the end, I assume.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to show us, Ollie, or tell us?
Well, that's pretty much it for the time being.
Well, I want to thank you for explaining how to repair one of these gill nets, what the difference is between a gill net and a seine net, and sharing with us some of your stories.
I haven't. I'm still going through this one yet. This Gillnet. I'm watching the process. All started from one little mesh.
So this is what they used to do before they were manufactured in a factory or something like that. People would make them by hand. Is that what you're trying to show us here?
Yeah. And that's with twine like this, 3-strand cotton, and they would dye the net their color where they were going to fish the net.
And how long would it take them to make a 200 fathom net, Ollie?
It'll take them a couple of months. They'll take their time in doing it. I asked an old man once what he was making. He said he was making a spring net. He wanted to fish the tobas. He wanted to get some fish for the winter. From one little strand corner, this is now making of a net.
And of course, you would set your distance of how big a mesh you wanted, or how big the
Yeah,
opening you wanted,
yeah.
and then just keep on like the factory-made one.
That's right. Yes, they used to spend hours and hours. They never could afford to buy a net like this already hung, and so they would buy a lot of these twine, and once they finished the net, they would dye it. And I don't know what they use for dye. In tubas, it would be a light creamish color or a greenish color of the freshet that's running out. But my curiosity at the time was the old man making a net just so he can go and catch some springs to preserve for the winter. And he couldn't afford to buy a net. He said he used to go hand logging and do a little bit of work here and there just to buy enough twine to make a net. And they used to use sometimes rocks to tie on the bottom of it instead of using a lead line. In the older times too was they never used the plastic or the corks like this today. They used to be cedar corks, all cedar corks. Sometimes you could never see them in the water. It's the reflection, because it was black. You would never know there was a net out there. I had a friend called Hungry Ollie. He had a fast Gillnet. He used to have a net. He'd set it and take off, go set another net somewhere else. You'd never see the black corks in the water. It looked like kelps on the floating or a piece of driftwood. And that net will be fishing all day long. I don't want to let all my secrets out about the crooks. That's about all I can tell you, my friend.
Well, thanks again, Ollie. It's been very enjoyable and very educational.
Yeah, I often wonder about this little piece of board, how that old man just used it and took his time to make it that spring.